First thing you want to do is log on Wednesday morning at exactly 3:01 a.m. Use an incognito browser and a VPN to set your location to a country at least 3,000 miles away. And now, let's thank the sponsor of today's video, RobVPN. Seriously though, there's no such thing as RobVPN. I made that logo in Canva in like 30 seconds. And those hacks? They're all urban legends and don't actually work. But I still see them go viral on apps like TikTok all the time. So I thought, let's take this opportunity to take a deep dive on this topic and set some things straight. This is probably going to be different than all the other videos on YouTube with the same title. Because the truth is, the key to getting cheap flights is often not to hyper focus on the price of the flight, which I know seems counterintuitive, so let's talk about it. Now, there is a kernel of truth that you can find better airfares by choosing the right times to fly. Airlines are more predictable than a lot of people think. It's all a matter of supply and demand. The least expensive flights are on the months with the lowest demand, on the days of week with the lowest demand, and at the times of day with the lowest demand. Generally speaking, the least expensive days to fly are Tuesday and Wednesday, and the most expensive days to fly are Friday and Sunday. Similarly, on a route that flies multiple times per day, the least expensive flights will be first thing in the morning, like at 6 a.m., and at the end of the night, like after 10 p.m. Because not many people want to wake up at 4 a.m. to get to their flight or drive home after midnight. And there is a kernel of truth that when you book matters too, in the sense that airfares are almost always most expensive within 14 days of the actual flight. So those who plan ahead will usually be rewarded with lower fares. Now, let's talk about the fact that Washington, D.C. and many big cities have more than one airport. And the airfares may be substantially different depending on which airport you choose. There are 3 airports here: Reagan National, right across the Potomac River from downtown; Dulles International, about 30 miles away in Virginia; and Baltimore Washington International, about 40 miles away in Maryland. And a lot of people assume that flights to Reagan National are always the most expensive because it's the smallest of the 3 airports and the closest to the city. So it would make sense, in theory, that there would be a convenience premium. But there's more to it than just that. In the airline industry, competition matters a lot. As a traveler, if there are multiple airlines competing for your business, you will almost always get better airfares than if there's just a single airline with a monopoly on an airport pair. Let me explain with an example. Say you're traveling from Columbus, Ohio. There are nonstop flights to all 3 airports here from Columbus. To Dulles, you can fly on United. To BWI, you can fly on Southwest. And to Reagan National, you can fly on either American or Southwest. Since there are 2 airlines competing for your business between that last airport pair, fares from Columbus to Reagan National are often lower than the other 2. So my point of all of this is just to say, since the average traveler probably doesn't know which airlines are flying between which airport pairs, it's always worth checking all of the airports, rather than just assuming that one is always going to be more expensive or one is always going to be less expensive. By the way, I've been so excited to talk about all this airfare stuff, I haven't even introduced myself yet. If you're new here, my name is Rob. I'm a tour guide and the founder of TripHacks DC Tours. On this channel, I share my best tips, tricks, and hacks for visitors who want to explore Washington, D.C. And I'm curious to know, have you flown to D.C. before? Which airport did you use and how did it go? Leave a comment down there and let me know. Now, let's talk about why finding cheap airfare is often more art than it is science. Because this would be a really short video if all you had to do was go on Google Flights, type in WAS, which lets you search all 3 of our airports, and then search lowest to highest priced. Actually, that would be great. But the thing is, paying the least number of dollars might not actually be the best option. Let me explain with another example. Remember when I said that the cheapest flights dollar-wise are often first thing in the morning and last thing at night? Now imagine a hypothetical weekend trip where you're coming in on Friday, staying the weekend, and flying home on Monday. If the cheapest flights arrive Friday at midnight and then bring you home at 6 a.m. on Monday, you're going to wind up paying for 3 hotel nights, even though you're only going to be here for 2 days. That's a bad deal. Or imagine you use Google Flights, but don't turn on the filter for only nonstop flights. So maybe your flight leaves at a reasonable time on Friday morning, but because it has a long layover, still doesn't get you into DC until around midnight. Again, the price may be cheap, but it's a bad deal. And let's say you find nonstop flights that get you into DC on Friday at noon and bring you back home on Monday at 3 p.m., but it's $100 more than the cheapest option. That $100 may well be worth every single penny if it means getting to do extra stuff both on Friday and on Monday. And when it comes to our 3 airports, you've also got to factor in the cost of ground transportation. Reagan National is so close that even if you took a cab right downtown, it still probably wouldn't cost you more than $25. Whereas the other 2 airports, you're probably looking at more like $80 and $100 respectively. And yes, there are public transportation options between both Dulles and BWI, but these airports are so far away that it's gonna take a long time. So any cost savings you're paying for with your time. You've gotta calculate all of these things together. The airfare, the ground transportation, the value of your time. Taking a $59 flight that gets you into Dulles at 10 p.m. is a bad move if there was a $74 flight that gets you into Reagan National at noon. If you're flying a long distance, like from San Francisco, paying extra for a nonstop flight could easily be worth it if it means avoiding a long layover. Of course, I'm speaking as someone from Washington, D.C., where most of our visitors are domestic travelers. And this calculus can completely change if you're coming in from another country, or if you have a longer trip and are staying for more than a few days. Because in that case, the amount of time spent on your first and last day makes up a smaller percentage of the total trip. Now don't be discouraged. As you become a better, more seasoned traveler, you're gonna get the hook of the art of cheap flights. Just remember to always take a step back, a deep breath, and ask yourself, is the cheapest flight, dollar-wise, really the best option? And hey, if you made it this far, then I highly recommend another TripHacks DC video, like my ultimate Washington DC travel guide, which you can watch by clicking or tapping right over here, right there, right now. Enjoy your trip.